and seems as if that sense of mission and enthusiasm has rattled Republicans, at least for the moment. And as we covered earlier in the show, Donald Trump and his campaign have suggested that he may not follow through with the debate in September that had been scheduled to be with President Biden. Now, of course, would be the vice president, assuming she does wrap up the nomination as expected. What do you make of that?
It's extraordinary. Tough talk is this guy's calling card. And now there's this extraordinary show of weakness. He agreed to, he said anytime, any place. But more than that, he agreed to this specific debate on this specific network on this specific date. And now he's pulling out. And of course, it shows that he's afraid. It shows that he knows if the two of them are on a stage together, it's not going to end well for him. This is a campaign that really has struggled to be about anything but Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And I think that's the bigger pattern that you're seeing here, and part of why the Trump campaign is having such a hard time adapting. Think about it. Just in a matter of 2 or 3 days, our campaign adapted to literally the biggest possible change, which is a change in the top of the ticket. And yet, within a couple of days, that support consolidated and that message was clear. They, meanwhile, have been flailing in a way that shows they're unable to adapt. And to me, it's not just that their entire strategic apparatus was built around tearing down Joe Biden. I think there's something deeper, which is Donald Trump cannot conceive of a campaign that isn't about the candidate. We're obviously very excited about our candidate. Kamala Harris is a leader that everybody is pulling together around, but also she's articulating a message that isn't just about herself and certainly isn't just about Donald Trump, although she has that contrast down. It's about us. And that's the kind of campaign that wins. It's the right kind of campaign. And it's also one that literally does not compute for somebody like Donald Trump.
That was Pete Buttigieg on Morning Joe, absolutely taunting Donald Trump in a humiliating fashion, saying, "Really, Donald? You want to act so tough, but you can't debate? You're afraid to debate? Really? You want to pretend that you're this macho man, but a debate with Kamala Harris is so scary to you that you're trying to find any reason in the world that you can get out of it." And we're actually going to look at what Donald Trump said on why he doesn't want to debate Kamala Harris. It's just a ridiculous reason, but that'll be coming up in just a second, so stick around. But Pete Buttigieg also says something before we get to that debate topic that I think is important in this clip, which is Donald Trump doesn't know how to articulate a case against Kamala Harris. One, because there are no hits to make on her. He can't go after her record because it is historic, and he can't go after her experience because she has more and better experience than he does. And so Donald Trump doesn't want to make this race about the future or policy because he doesn't have a vision for the future and his policy is terrible. And so right now, his campaign is flailing because they don't have a direction to go, and they are so incredibly unpopular as Kamala Harris continues to surge in the polls. So it makes sense why they'd be so scared to debate her. And this is the reason that they gave. Given the continued political chaos surrounding crooked Joe Biden and the Democrat Party, general election debate details cannot be finalized until Democrats formally decide on their nominee. There is a strong case by many in the Democrat Party, namely Barack Obama, that Kamala Harris is a Marxist fraud who cannot beat President Trump, and they are still holding out for someone better. Therefore, it would be inappropriate to schedule things with Harris because Democrats very well still could change their minds. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about in what was posted by Donald Trump there. First of all, Donald Trump debated Joe Biden before he became the nominee for president, before he became the official Democratic nominee for president. It was before the DNC, so things weren't exactly official. So that's not a real argument for why he doesn't want to debate her. And also, the idea that there is not huge support for Kamala Harris in the Democratic Party, someone who's already received the necessary delegates and will be our nominee for president in November, is absolutely preposterous. And not just that, it's not that just Kamala Harris is incredibly popular in the Democratic Party. New polling is showing Kamala Harris taking voters away from Donald Trump, Republican voters, Trump voters away from him. Trump voters away from him. And that's really the reason why he's so upset, because he knows he's not just losing, but he's losing his own supporters. And that just drives him mad. And it makes sense why he would, because like I said at the top of this video, Donald Trump doesn't have a vision for the future. It is all anger and retribution and unhinged speeches about Hannibal Lecter and sharks. Who would want to get behind this person? Unless, of course, you're in a cult. But Pete Buttigieg had more to say about this morning, and I just want to show you the clip because, as always, he does such a great job breaking it down. So let's check it out.
About why politics, why public service matters.
You know, it's a great point. Like, generationally, I think anyone my age and younger, especially in the first part of this century, witnessed a lot of policy failure. So part of my message, my antidote to that, is to look at what's been achieved these last few years, and most importantly, what that could point to for the future. I think about my own trajectory. The fact that just the fact of somebody like me being able to have a role like I do or run a campaign like we did would have been considered preposterous just 10 or 20 years ago. I think of the trajectory of South Bend, Indiana, where I served as mayor and where I grew up, a place that in less than a decade changed the narrative about that from being written up in national commentaries as a dying Rust Belt city to being a city that was growing and was being regarded as a place full of innovation and energy. And of course, I think about serving in a Biden-Harris administration and watching what happened. I mean, take infrastructure, right? Where there was this belief that you just couldn't, even though there was this thing that obviously needed to be done, and yet it just couldn't happen. No president could get it through. Definitely couldn't happen on a bipartisan basis, only to see the Biden-Harris administration deliver that. And I think that lights the way toward what is possible. And as you mentioned, there's also just something in this moment, just this week's moment, about that idea of enjoying this a little more. Politics doesn't have to be a death match. You know, we have certainly seen and had cause for being extremely troubled and disturbed by what's coming out of the other side. I think we continue to be right to talk about the threat and the concern for our democracy. If you have a guy like Donald Trump who inspired the January 6th riots and attempt against our democracy, somebody who talks about terminating the Constitution and said that a political opponent of his ought to be brought before a military tribunal. Like, that's really dark. But the other side of the coin is the joy of the right and better kind of politics. And we've seen that throughout the week. And again, it's something that I think is animating our side and that the other side literally can't conceive. And that's why some of their attacks that have fallen flat kind of reveal that there's just a different energy, a different vibe over there. The fact that they, for example, clip and tweet images of Kamala Harris laughing as if that's something that counts against her shows that they literally are having trouble just getting the idea of there being joy in the struggle and in the challenge. But I think that's something that speaks more to the campaign than voters. I think there are a lot of independents and what I always like to call future former Republicans who would rather just sign up and be part of this project than continue to be part of this doom-filled whatever we saw at the RNC.
I love the positive message that Pete carries in every single thing he does, the energy and joy that he has in governing and being a part of solutions, being a part of making our country better. I cannot remember, and maybe this is my fault, but the last time I really kept up with who the transportation secretary was. And Pete Buttigieg has made infrastructure, obviously a core tenet of this administration, but has made infrastructure so much more important and energizing and exciting in our lives just by the way that he talks about policy, the way he talks about improving people's lives, the way he talks about, transportation at large. And this is the type of vision for the future that's being brought forward in this campaign right now. And that's why Pete Buttigieg would really, in my opinion, make an incredible running mate for Kamala Harris. I don't know what y'all think about that, but actually let me know in the comments if you agree that I think Pete would make an incredible running mate. But let me know if you agree or if you think it should be someone else. But I really think that this energy is what's defining this campaign more than anything. This excitement, this enthusiasm, this positivity. like Pete said, Kamala Harris is really easily making the contrast between herself and Trump. You have young, you have old, both in age and ideas. You also have career prosecutor who has went after the corrupt and criminals, and then you have career corrupt criminal in Donald Trump, 34 felonies, if I need to remind y'all. But it's not just that contrast that's being made. That's incredibly clear, and that we should see on a debate stage. We need to see that split screen. Kamala Harris has already said that. She's called on Donald Trump anytime, any place. We have a debate scheduled. Let's do it. Because the American people need to see that split screen. But it's not just about that. It's not just about the contrast. If we just look at Kamala Harris, we see someone who has inspired, for certain my generation, but many others, with her positivity and her forward-looking vision of what this country should be and how we're going to do it. Right? Not just the freedom to get by, Kamala Harris says, the freedom to get ahead. We can build a coalition right now in this moment, so excited to elect Democrats up and down the ballot to make our future better, to invest in childcare, to lower prescription drug costs, to continue to invest in infrastructure, to battle climate change. These are all things that we can do with excitement and joy for the work of governing. And that's not what Donald Trump would ever bring. Donald Trump brought dismay and disaster and discontent in this country in a way that we hadn't seen since the Civil War. But on the other side, we have Kamala Harris, who brings joy to governing, who brings joy to the work, the tough work, but the work of making people's lives better. And that is a movement that I can get behind. And I can certainly get behind Pete Buttigieg's message, because it is incredible, it is powerful, and it is going to keep us moving forward. And if you agree with that message and you want to see more messages like that, make sure that you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You join what we are building on this channel. Leave a like on this video. It really goes a long way in terms of helping these videos go far and wide and continuing to build this community. This channel launched just 2 weeks ago, and we have already blown past 60,000 subscribers, and that is because of you, viewer. And I am so grateful for what we have already built together and what we are continuing to build. It is so incredible to see this channel grow, and it is because of you. I'm so excited about it. And as always, I will see y'all next time.